So, as I was getting ready to leave for my year abroad as a foreign exchange student, I got a bunch of people asking me for updates, pictures, videos, the works on my trip to Osaka, Japan. So my solution was to make this monthly update vlog/journal of my trip that I can upload. This is my journey so far through the month of August. I left my home the morning of August 18th after pulling an all-nighter so I'd sleep on my 15-hour flight. I said goodbye to my girlfriend, my sisters, and my parents as I made my way through the airport security. Before I boarded, I wanted one last taste of American food before the next 11 months. My options were limited, so I got Wendy's. I got on the plane, took some sleep meds, a flight attendant gave me some slippers, and I couldn't fall asleep. For the whole 15 hours, this was a very long flight. I basically spent the whole time watching movies and watching the lady next to me beat 2048 like 3 times. I had the whole row to myself, so I at least had some room to spread out and get comfortable. I landed in Seoul and had a 4-hour layover. I also didn't fall asleep here because I was paranoid about missing my flight, so I just kind of bummed around, saw some cool sculptures, got probably the best coffee I've ever tasted, bought a souvenir to tell people I've technically been to South Korea, and eventually boarded my flight to Osaka. This one was only 2 hours, which wasn't bad, but the 36 hours of no sleep was really starting to hit me by that point. I made it through immigration and was greeted by my host families and the Rotary Club that was hosting me. I was so burnt out I forgot every single word of Japanese I'd ever learned, and I could barely remember English, so my recollection of that first introduction was very awkward. We drove to my first host family's home, and I was able to store my things and fall asleep for the first time in 2 days. Now that I'm finally in Osaka, my host family wasted no time introducing me to new foods and restaurants. This first few days were mostly spent trying new restaurants, filing paperwork, and adjusting to the time difference. I found that so far my favorite dishes are Japanese curry and karage, which is fried chicken. Day 4, my Rotary Club hosted an outing to Uji, which is in the southernmost part of Kyoto, and about an hour bus ride. Uji is probably to date the most beautiful place I've ever seen. The whole city is surrounded by mountains and sits on top of a big river. The buildings all have this rich feeling of history behind them, and I had a great time just gawking at the architecture as we were walking to all the museums. The bus first dropped us off at this class where we all learned how to grind and prepare our own matcha, and I found out that I really like matcha. The class was inside a bigger museum that told the history of matcha and tea as an industry as a whole in Japan. It was pretty fun. There was a photo booth at the end. The museum also had a smaller exhibit talking about a really famous TV show in Japan, talking about behind-the-scenes stuff, and had a bunch of costumes and props from the show. I knew nothing about it, but the people there were into it. And I got matcha ice cream from the gift shop, so I was able to enjoy that. To cap off the evening, we hopped on a boat and ate dinner on the river. For entertainment, we watched this lady go fishing with birds on leashes. The birds dove into the water and swallowed the fish, and then the lady made them spit it out into a basket. It was an odd show, but it was cool to watch. After a few more days of getting settled in, I had an orientation for school, uniform fittings, the works. The campus is really cool, has a lot of outdoor spaces and walking paths, but I didn't get that much footage as I didn't really start actual school until the next week. Instead, I went to this 2-day language camp hosted by the Rotary Club. It was taught by some former exchange students, and afterwards we went to a restaurant where we were served by robots. It's expected to bring gifts from your host families from your home country, so one thing I brought to represent Minnesota was some wild rice. My host family got really excited, they'd never heard of it before, and they're big on rice here. So I made up a chicken wild rice casserole to introduce them to some Minnesota culture. The final day of the month we went to an exhibit displaying the works of painter Utagawa Hiroshige. They didn't allow photos or videos, but I snuck in this shot at the entrance. And that's been a summary of my trip so far. It's only been a few weeks, but I'm starting to really get comfortable here. I'm really excited for what the next 11 months have in store for me, and I'm excited to share that all with you. Until then, I guess I'll see you next month.